Hello, hello. Welcome to our headquarters Superpower Alliance. This month we have Deb and Naomi from That Relationship Show, which everybody knows about. If you don't know about it, where have you been? You need to check it out. It's amazing. It is an incredible relationship podcast. And we're going to talk today about podcasting. And the reason that I thought of them is because I really see them as doing something very inspiring where they're getting out of their comfort zone. They're both certified EFT therapists and supervisors, and they are also co-founders of the Seacoast EFT. So they've got a very robust clinical life, but then they branched out and they did this fun thing, and that's inspiring to me. That's something that I want all of us to think about. How can we be using our energy in creative ways more than just, what we do in the chair? So I'm opening this up. And the first question I would like to ask you, and I'm going to ask every guest, is what is your superpower? I'd love to hear from both of you. How do you think about your superpower? And as you answer the question, I think you guys are going to get a sense of what I mean by that.
Yeah. What do you think, partner? Do you want to give it a go and I'll jump in?
We got a chance to talk about it a little bit in advance. And one of the things we came up with is we think our superpower is our relationship. Mm-hmm. And we feel like that we have really seen our relationship grow in the 5 years that we've done this podcast together. And we think it's cool that it's a podcast about relationships and we are a relationship. And neither of us would do it without the other. Like we 100% rely on each other and we couldn't do it without the other person. What do you think over there, Naomi? How would you say it?
Well said. And I want to say Deb and I didn't know each other when we started this journey. We met through a mutual friend. We don't live in the same town. She actually lives in Massachusetts and I'm in New Hampshire. And I would say there is something magic that happens when we come together. Some of it we can describe. I think we're supportive. I love Deb because she always says yes. If I want to, can we serve cookies or get a cake for it? Or, she always says yes. Can we buy new equipment? Yes. We're very supportive of each other. But there's something about having another person to kind of riff off of or rein you in. I actually told Deb this morning, I almost called you at 2:00. I was up, had an idea about the podcast. Was it a genius idea or a terrible idea? She said it was a good one.
I said it was genius. It wasn't good. It was genius.
Okay.
So instead of it being like I was up in the middle of the night for nothing, it was actually a really good idea. Wait till you hear it. Yes.
Many times they're not. But yeah, I think that neither one of us would have done this thing. We might have done something else without the other, but there's something that happened as we met and began talking and exploring. So I think that's definitely our superpower.
I was curious, actually. I'm glad that you're saying this because I was curious about your relationship. It feels like you've known each other forever. And I think that's what you're describing is the chemistry that you have together and how that really, obviously it impacts the podcast, but it seems like it's even bigger than that, maybe. And I just want to say, I don't think it's easy to collaborate. That can bring a lot of things, right? And so in leadership, especially. And so it is a superpower. It's so good to hear.
It's funny you should say that because it is really true. And I think before I met Naomi, I'd actually had like a work relationship situation that hadn't gone that well. Like it was somebody I shared an office mate with that I was feeling kind of disillusioned. And I find hanging around with her, it's like having a cup of coffee or something. It's very energizing. It's very, she's brilliant. I like to say she's so smart and she's so supportive. And it's something that she says to me often is, I've got your back. And she always does. That's 100%. I mean, I want to tell the story of, I'm actually wearing a sweater that she gave me for my 60th birthday. And the reason, this is like the most thoughtful gift. Okay, my friend gave this to me. It's so sweet. the episode that we did on Hold Me Tight, Let Me Go, about teenagers, we were so touched by that episode. Like, and I guess this is something that's really true about doing the podcast. We do it because it changes us, it moves us, we learn so much. And this particular episode, I think we were just like so moved by it. And I showed Naomi, we started sharing with each other pictures of ourselves as teenagers. And I showed her this picture of myself where I was wearing this kind of hippie skirt. It was like the 70s, and a sweater that looked a lot like this that my grandmother had knit me. And I said, and so for my birthday, she actually found this sweater in Scotland that looks almost exactly like the one my grandmother knit me that I used to have when I was a kid. And it's like the thoughtfulness. That's all. I just had to say that. So I was wearing the sweater in part because it comes directly from an episode and from my good friend. Has my back.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. Deb. I did notice you were wearing it. It looks very pretty.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I mean,
Thank
it's like
you.
a
Thank you.
it's a tangible sign of
Right.
what we're talking about. And
Exactly.
so much of as therapists in business, right, the relational component is foundational. It's like, it's funny because I think a lot of, if you listen to business podcasts or read business books, like they're catching on and they're like, oh, like, we've got to have relationship safety, emotional safety. This actually makes us successful. And so, you guys really get that. I really want to hear what it was like. Take me back to the beginning. What was it like to go from dreaming? Because obviously at first it was an idea, right? Just kind of like, what if we did a podcast? From dreaming to actually doing. And something that we talk about in this group is, we got to take those risks. We got to just take a small risk, put yourself out there in a little way. So this is a bit, it's a really, I would think, you don't know how it's going to go. You don't know if it's going to flop or if it's going to be a waste of time but can you take me back to the beginning? What was it like from dreaming to doing?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll take
you
this
go.
one.
You go,
yeah,
girl.
So there's a woman who had a local live podcast here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, maybe 6 years ago or something, who had asked for an EFT expert to come on. And so I had connected her with Jill Fisher, who was the Boston EFT trainer at the time. And 45 minutes before she was supposed to go on, she got a kidney stone and couldn't go on. And so the podcast host said, you're up, Naomi. You're the only other person I know. And I was horrified and not prepared because I wasn't certified yet. I thought I am hardly an expert to have on about EFT. And side note, it seemed like one of those, almost like a skit from Saturday Night Live, like a cable access live show. I think there weren't any real callers, and she had her sister who sounded like her call in. And I remember thinking at the time, this is hilarious. There's literally not one person listening to this, but okay. So I somehow got through the podcast, and to my shock, at 7:00 the next morning, I had an email from a listener saying, I am in so much pain. My husband and I have been fighting, and I want to learn more about this EFT. And I thought, you could have knocked me over. I never would have predicted it. And I think this is part of the magic that Deb and I have together. I would say I, as an individual, am not afraid to fail because I fail a lot. So it's pretty familiar to me. I just sort of chalk it up. So I don't think I, individually had to worry of what if it fails. And I was just so moved by this woman's email. And this is what Deb is like. So Deb is the creative genius. She's very positive and she just says yes to things. And one of Deb's strengths is she figures out, how can we make this happen? And so I probably called you at 7:05 or something and said, we have to do a podcast. And in Deb fashion, she said, yes, okay, we'll do a podcast. And then, we can talk a little bit because it was a lot of researching about equipment and platforms and how much money does it cost? And if Deb wants to step in here, but it really was a matter of being moved by the pain of a listener and realizing we had something we felt was valuable to share, and we wanted to put it out there.
That's exactly how I remember it. I just want to say she like slam dunk this interview, of course. I mean, this is a good reason to do a podcast with somebody like Naomi, because you did a great job. Like I listened to it and I thought you did so well. Like you're good at speaking on the drop of a hat. You did great. But I think we started talking about it. So it's definitely Naomi's idea. And one of the things that our picture is we try to say, what do our clients need to hear about? So we are full-time clinicians. This is our work. This is not like, it's not like this is not our job. We are full-time clinicians. And so we will get together and we'll be like, have you been hearing about this too? Have people been talking to you about this or that? And it's like, so we get the ideas because, it seems like, you may have experiences with your clinician friends where it just feels like there's themes going on or something, or a lot of grief happening, or there's a lot of this, or a lot of that, or people having trouble with their teenagers or whatever. So we will have, that's how we visualize, that's how we imagined what we wanted to do is we wanted to have a podcast so that to answer the questions from our clients. And we also wanted to bring people we feel privileged to be in contact with because of our trainings we go to. So one of the, at first, what we started doing is we just started interviewing our friends. That's what we did. Like some of the early episodes are our friend Laura, what's it like to be a withdrawer? Like that. And then a really cool thing happened after we put out a bunch of episodes was Rebecca Jorgensen, who's an EFT trainer, reached out to us and said, hey, I love your podcast. I'd be a guest on it if you want to. And she changed the trajectory of the podcast because we had never considered like that even any trainer would want to be on it or anybody. And that became like the stepping stone to, wow, so far, I don't think any EFT trainer has turned us down if we can reach them, if they respond to their email. But then we started thinking, wow, who else would we like to talk to about relationships? And then we jumped on to, other people that have written books or things that we're really interested in. And then, as you can see, it's very exciting. So then we just can't wait to have our next who else do we want to talk to, right? We've been trying with Brene Brown so far, no answer yet, but anyway. Go ahead.
That's hard to try though. I mean, this is what I was going to just brag on you. And so for those of you that haven't been listening, they have had Deb Dana, Emily Nagoski, Sue Johnson, Lori Gottlieb, and these are big, big names. And they won the Best Podcast on Therapy Award in 2021. So to hear your humble beginnings is so sweet because, it sounds like it was a very kind of organic, sort of like you were motivated, you were moved, why not? And then it just, and this is something else that I want our listeners to realize is you literally never know. If you take this tiny little step and you just do it because maybe it'll be fun or why not, you just have no idea what it could amount to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great example. My next question is related. I hear that it's really beneficial personally. I'm curious, would you say that this has been beneficial for you professionally? And, maybe talk a little bit about how you think about that.
I think so, definitely. And that was unintended. I appreciate the way you said that, Kelly. It really was organic. And for me, I never lose the voice of that first person who wrote to me. Like I think about a person who's just at war with their partner and they're in so much pain in the middle of the night and desperately looking for something. And I just sort of feel like we do have a lot of wisdom in the community to offer. So I think that's always in the back of my mind. I wasn't thinking about what it would do professionally, but I have to say it does quite a lot. So from colleagues And again, like this, the first time this happened, I was really in shock, just going to a training across the country. And who am I? I'm just this therapist from New Hampshire, and having a bunch of people know who I am. Like, it's really funny, even just hearing my speaking voice and being like, oh my God, it's like, I'm looking behind me like, who are you talking to? So, but what I would say is so many potential clients listen to it, or current clients. And it's sort of like, I've heard this, it's like if you write a book, it gives you this kind of credibility. So I think, I think this is the same for you, Deb. The number of requests that we get for supervision from clients, we haven't done any marketing in a really long time. So it's ended up, I think, being a pretty big bonus professionally.
I agree. And I think, something, I don't even know that you and I talked about this, but I was talking with my husband about this talk we were going to be doing today. And he was saying something that you and I share. And I think this is like this desire to serve, like service, like you and I both. Like, so there's a way in which we've loved to joke about, oh, we're going to make so much money. And early, we actually did look for sponsors or whatever, but really there is some part of it, each of us, I know this is true, both of us, there's like this, it feels like we get so much out of it. I wouldn't do it if I didn't. Like I do, just like you're saying, Naomi, it's like writing a book that people look at you, it adds to your expertise. And actually the reality is, we do become more expert because every month we're talking to other people. In the preparation for the interviews and talking with other experts about relationships, we are growing and learning. So it's like we learn, we get so much out of it, and other people then appreciate our expertise. But I want to say the other thing is, I think both of us have a heart for service. Like we want to give back. And that's just something true about us. Like we don't care whether we make money, even though I guess we do too.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Listening,
potential sponsors
wants it.
Yeah. I think it's who we are, and also maybe like stage of life there, because I do find like one of the things I like about supervision is sort of being a mentor. Like because we aren't afraid to go for it. We have made mistakes. It's like, I don't know, we have things to share. And I think that feels good too, sort of the stage of life. And I will say, this goes to the idea of money. We actually have had sponsors reach out to it. This is a surprise because I also wouldn't have guessed this, that we've turned down because it's like a weird product or something that
that's
just
true.
doesn't feel ethical to us. So that's been interesting too.
Yeah.
I didn't think I could like you more. I like you so much more. I thought I liked you, but what it's reminding me of is I read this book by Adam Grant called Give and Take. And the premise is that the givers win. In the long run, the givers win. And there is this generosity that becomes expansive, right? And you do get back, and there's this energy and this flow. And I think that what you're doing is such a gift, to just people who are in pain, like you're saying, Naomi, but also to therapists. I can speak on behalf of a lot of therapists that we actually recommend specific episodes to clients. It's such a nice, it's like, okay, everybody wants to know, what can I do between sessions? I'll listen to this, maybe it'll kind of help you with perspective. So I love to hear that. And I agree with you. I can understand. It's not that you're getting nothing professionally. It opens doors. I think that analogy to like writing a book is perfect. Books are not money makers within themselves, but what happens out of that, the opportunities, the open door, the exposure, it's maybe not like this return on investment that you can put on a spreadsheet, but it absolutely comes back. So that's amazing. Okay, so now the boring part, but I think everybody wants to know, and this is why people don't do podcasts, because therapists usually aren't the most technically savvy. And so maybe actually you are, Deb. I'm thinking this, I don't know if you're the one of the two, but how did you do that? How did you figure out, okay, the editing is the part that I'm thinking, the editing, the mics, all of that.
It's funny. I'll start and then you go. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So the thing so again, this was Naomi's idea, and I was like, you know what? I think I know somebody that does a podcast. So I made a date to talk on the phone with somebody, I think who was a musician who had a musician's podcast. And like, I really just I was looking in my documents to see if I could find the list, because she gave me a list of the stuff we needed to do. And when you look into it, they say a lot of podcasters like Mark Maron started recording on his iPhone. So you don't need much. Like you can, I'm sure you can Google this. It doesn't take much. It can be very basic. And we started really basic. I mean, we started really basic, and you will see on the reviews, we get some dings for our sound stuff because we struggled for quite a while. And you asked, you're going to ask a question. I know you were going to about regrets, and I wish we could have dealt with that sooner, but we seem to have finally gotten to a better place. But it took us a while to do that. But I would say neither of us is particularly tech whatever. I would just say that we're both.
I think you're being very generous and kind. We're horrible.
We're horrible. We're just, I would say what we are is we're both just stubborn. I mean, so it's like, I will just push through to do it well enough. I'm not particularly, whatever, go ahead. You take it from here.
Yeah. So we started with a little recorder that we bought at Staples for maybe $80. Like if you're in a corporate meeting. And early on, we were in the same room, and it might have even been before
right.
Zoom. It might have been we had an iPhone or something. I mean, it was really rudimentary. And Deb found the Libsyn platform.
Right.
And I actually still use GarageBand. And I have to say that, and I don't think very many people use GarageBand, but I have to say I have this. Maybe it must be like a control issue, Deb. We're going to have to unpack my control issue. I know that there are other people that either don't edit them or they will send them out to somebody else. But I feel really strongly, we want our guests to look good and sound good. It just really matters to me. And sometimes people take a really long time pausing when they speak. There's so much work that I do the editing. And or they repeat themselves, or there's a lot of ums, and so it just matters to me to put out something that I would want to listen to where we don't. So I do the editing, and it can take forever to make it sort of seamless and streamlined. And but oh my gosh, such a slow learning curve because I have no talent, zero. And I do, and then we bought some other equipment thinking it would make the sound better, but it really wasn't perfect. I would say it because I'm pretty slow on this stuff. I mean, I think the first year the sound is pretty rough. I think we have it down now, but definitely a long learning curve. And I think this is part of having that partnership, our secret power, right? Is if I would get down and say, I can't take it anymore, Deb would say, hang in there, it's okay. Or just put it away for now. It doesn't matter if it comes out a week late. But definitely a lot of learning on those technical aspects.
I am so grateful. So actually, this would be one of those teamwork things because I am not like a really good detail person. I could not do the editing. Like I just wouldn't do it. I mean, this would be a reason why the podcast wouldn't exist. Is I really appreciate that Naomi does that. And so I do but then I'm the person that'll say, you don't have to do any of this. You can walk away from this. And then it takes the pressure off you. I think that I can provide that balance, but it's like, and you didn't mention how your husband was our first editor and you took the job away from him.
Yeah, that wasn't going to work. I had to take that job right away from him.
I really appreciate you guys saying that it took some work and that that it wasn't perfect. And you put it out there anyway.
Right.
That's what I really want everybody to kind of hear, because I think a lot of people they just stall because they don't think it's good enough. And so whatever we're talking about, right? That you just don't want to look bad or put out something that's less than perfect. But then would anything ever happen? So I'm so glad that you were willing to kind of keep going and fight through that. I know there's always this learning period or growing period, there's like a period of time before you feel like we've got a well-oiled machine, right? That it's
Right.
just, what we're doing and we're
Yeah.
clicking, and it's just more of like putting
Right.
it, just repeating, rinse and repeat. But it sounds like it took a bit. So I just, kudos to you for pushing through and not giving up. And I did hear what you're saying, Naomi, that was easier because you have a buddy who can, we've got this, or it's okay if we're a little bit late on putting it.
I would say another thing too is in today's day and age, because you have to have a social media presence. So if you put this on iTunes, you're going to get reviews. You put stuff on Instagram, you're going to get comments. And that was something where I think we really helped each other. Because I do think of myself as having a pretty thick skin, but let's say I might have agonized for 20 hours in the beginning, I'm not kidding you. I might take 20 hours to look, because I'm not very savvy, like learning GarageBand, editing an episode. And then the reviews would be like, the content's good, but the sound sucks. You need professional, like people are sharp, man, in those anonymous reviews. And I'd be like, ouch, God, I spent 20 hours on that stupid thing, So I think you have to have a little bit of a thick skin for some of the sharp comments that you're going to get, because you're going to get them. It's not all love.
And that's why I guess, it's interesting too, I love talking about this, and I really appreciate what you're highlighting, Kelly, about putting out something that's not perfect, because that has totally been our trajectory, and it's gotten better.
It's our specialty.
It's our specialty. But what has helped is that people loved us from the beginning. There was something, we got support from a small group of people, and it was probably our friends, okay, whatever. But we have very supportive husbands. So we're talking like a small group of people have been so supportive and so kind that it's like it insulates you. And the two of us will, I'll say something embarrassing, on the, whatever, or I'll do something that I'm mortified by on the podcast, or Naomi would do something. Did I sound this way or that way? And we had each other to be able to say it was fine, or I totally get it, or don't you think, Naomi? It's like that kind
Absolutely.
of stuff really helps.
And if this doesn't happen that much, but every once in a while you'll get like a really angry email from somebody like accusing you of something because of something your guest said, and that's where it's like, ouch.
Right.
And we that's where we're kind to each other. Our partners are really helpful, but I mean, the overwhelming majority of the feedback that we get is like, thank you, that was really helpful, I didn't know that, but
I'm really glad that you're naming this about the sharks, because I think that part of why people don't put themselves out there is because it's not what if I fail, it's what if I succeed. And if I succeed, then I'm really out there, right? And then that always invites haters. And so I think, the bigger you are, the more mean people can be, and the more just the more people, which just, it brings in an expected level of chaos. So what I'm hearing you say is it affects you, it impacts you, you lean on each other during that. But that is kind of something that happens, and you have to be ready for it, would you say?
Yeah, I think you have to expect it.
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't, I'm also hearing you say it just doesn't really weigh, and like the people around you that have loved you from the beginning, like what you're saying, like that's actually you come back to that. You said insulate. I thought that was really good. So it's like, okay, yeah, bring it. I'm good. Oh man. Okay, so I'm watching time. I have a couple questions left, but I also want to just let you guys know that are here, if you have questions, and maybe not just about podcasting, but about like doing something that's a little out of your comfort zone, please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll try to get to those. But my next question is, what about those big, big names? Like, do you get starstruck? What's it like reaching out to those people? Like, what's that like for you?
You want to start, Deb?
Sure. I love that. For some reason, this has been one of we will joke, it's like a high. Like we'll feel like it's a little bit like we feel like we need a high. Let me see if I can get a big name now. That's what we do. So you're trying to find somebody's contact information. I've got a fish on the line right now of an author that I really, really, really want. And like the publicist keeps saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Well,
We have two big fish on the
one.
line. Yeah.
You have a really big one. I have another one. And it's like, and the publicist will write me back, yeah, we really want to fit you in. I promise next week. And then I don't hear. But anyway, it's like this. It's like, but when you get it, it's like so exciting. That's the thing. Isn't it, Naomi? It's like, it's definitely a high.
It is the highest high. The when I think of oh my gosh, I feel terrible and I'm not remembering her name. The expert that we had on about pornography. Oh, Deb, remind me.
Oh yes. It'll come to me. It'll come to me.
So good. I wrote to her for probably 2 years. And then and it's actually, Deb and I both like this. Then we get like investigative journalists. We're like, let's find another podcast that she did agree to go on and write to that host and ask if they'll give us her contact information. So like, we're also kind of competitive and we spur each other on. So like we actually get pretty creative trying to find people's contact information. And that one took like 2 years and Deb finally landed it. And it's like the feeling is so exciting. And I think in the beginning, like my heart used to race, I used to get like a little bit nervous. That's kind of sad. I guess I don't think I really do. Do you still, Deb? Like, does your heart race when we first
I'm trying to think if at this point, I think I'm mostly just excited. Do you know what I mean? I'm mostly, I think I used to be more like worried I'd make a big mistake or I'd make a fool of myself or something like that. Now I'm mostly just excited and I'm trying to think of our audience and wanting to give them like the best that we can give them, like pull the best out of it, Yeah. But yeah, it's such a high. I was remembering. So Lori Gottlieb was on, who wrote, what was the name of the book? It's
Maybe you should talk to someone.
To somebody, yeah, about going to therapy. And I remember being in my office, at one of my old office actually, and I was on the phone with you telling you, I just read this book and it was really fun and you should read it. And I think you said, let's see if we can get her on the podcast. I was like, wow, we could get her on. And I can't believe she said yes. That was like one of those things. Like, I swear it was just a timing thing. Like, I happened to get her on it, whatever. And so that's the fun of it, is you just never know. And then there are people we really like to have that we just can't get them to return our email call, whatever. Yeah. So
but it's a great feeling when you land somebody that you really, really wanted and it takes a little while. Yeah.
And actually it reminds me of something else. How sometimes being a therapist, it's like you're in the hole, like it doesn't feel like any progress is happening. So this is like a nice high on the side. Yeah. It's a different kind of, it definitely feels creative. So it's something that you do that has like there's like similar skills, because interviewing and connecting with people, there's like that similarity to therapy, and it's all on therapy. Like there's a similarity, but it's also different, and it feels really nice. I think it's such a nice addition to the other work we do.
That's a great description, Deb. I think it is. It's like this combination of, it's intellectual, it's fun, but it's also super creative. And Deb does the amazing Canva tiles. She's our talent on the Instagram. I don't know how she does them. That would be so far out of my wheelhouse. And I think that's also really creative and fun and exciting to do.
Well, and as therapists, it is so important for us to find outlets where we're using our energy in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
That's key for burnout. And so I really, so going back to the original question, it's a game for you guys. You love it, you play it, you don't want to stop playing it. And I love that. You're not intimidated. You're just like, ooh, who can I get next? I love it. And then, that kind of, we were thinking about the creative energy, right? And how that's part of it, right? That it feels like this high that can maybe counterbalance what it can feel like when you're in the trenches of therapy. And we all love what we do. I mean, I think everybody can say passionate about what we do. Ultimately, it's about helping people. But this kind of different energy, I think, is really important to at least try to tap into. And it doesn't, for some people, it's not even related to therapy, right? It's like, I just make a point to paint or dance or play music, or it's just some kind of creative outlet. But I think it's pretty amazing when you can actually marry the two, that you're still in the same. And that's what this group is for me. This is a very, it's like a different, it's under the same umbrella, but it's a different, using my energy in a different way that feels extremely rewarding. Where it doesn't always feel that way with therapy. What I see you nodding your heads. I love that. What would you want listeners to know? Whether about podcasting specifically, but I think even more broadly about getting outside of your comfort zone, taking a tiny risk, to put yourself out there. What do you wish someone had told you, way back?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take a page from my friend Deb here. The answer is yes, do it. It's important. You do have something to say. You have a unique voice. There's billions of people. There's only one you. And so go for it and put it out there. And even if you stumble, you'll learn something. You may get that email at 7 o'clock in the morning. Who knew? And I think the world is richer for you having tried it, and you will be too. So my answer is always yes, do it, try it.
Try it. What I was thinking of when you asked the question, Kelly, was I was thinking of a friend of mine, and this meant so much to me, that she had said to me a couple months ago. She said, I can hear the difference in your voice. You sound so much more confident. And I am a shy person. Like I in some ways, like I'm a little uncomfortable. I don't like public speaking really that much. I don't, and it was like, I think this particular setup was the perfect setup for me to have more confidence in my own voice. So because it was conversational, and that's what I'm comfortable with. Like it is, I don't really enjoy standing up in front of a group, but because it feels really true. So I'm so glad my friend happened to notice that and say that to me. But it was like, it validates my own experience that I've changed as a person. And so that's what's cool about taking a risk like that, is I feel like a different person because Naomi asked me to do a podcast with her. And and all I had to do was say yes, and then to figure out the steps to do it, so yeah.
I am so glad you said that. I would not have guessed that. I mean, you guys just shine. Like you come across as very confident and very sure of what you're doing and who you are. I think you can hear that in the episodes. And so it reminds me what you're saying about that confidence actually growing through doing this new thing together, putting yourself out there. That I was watching a interview between Adam Grant, can you tell I'm a fan, and Reese Witherspoon, and she was talking about a role that she played, and she won an Oscar for it. And I didn't listen to it long enough to know what role this was, but she said she was terrified. She said, I asked the director, I want out. I can't do this. I don't think I'm right for this. And, Adam was like, this is the role you won the Oscar for? What are you talking about? And she said, yeah, I don't think actually that we are confident before. We don't get confident and then do the thing. Like, we actually build the confidence through doing the thing. And, I know that, but like hearing it from Reese Witherspoon was like, oh, well, even you, oh my goodness. So I think that's kind of what you're saying, Deb,
Yes.
is, these things are worth doing just because it changes you.
Right. Right. Totally. I was thinking very, very much, and I was thinking just, I went in preparation for this to look at our numbers. And I remember we used to be so excited I think a big episode would have been 1,000 downloads or something. And now, a big episode is like 10,000 downloads or something. And on days where I feel discouraged, I'm like, just picture that. Picture sitting in an auditorium, because we both are competitive. But it's funny, and so we love like numbers going up and things like that. So we share that. But it's like, you just imagine sitting in an auditorium and having 10,000 people hear what you have to say about something. It's that's the thrill part of it. That's the exciting part of it, right?
10,000 downloads. That is,
I know, right? Isn't that
oh,
insane?
tell
I
me,
know.
guys,
I know. Yeah.
I'm blown away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of you that are listening, please check out That Relationship Show. You guys tell me, how do I send people there? Jeff has it in the chat, so if you've got Apple or Spotify, for me, I just search it. I go to my thing and I just search it.
It's whatever you use to listen to podcasts. And I know some people don't listen, so you could even just go to a web browser, I guess, and look for That Relationship Show, right? But if you have a podcast app, you can subscribe, right? And then, or you can find it on Spotify. People have so many different ways of accessing podcasts. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Any last words before we go? We're going to move to what I like to call lightning round. And this is where everybody shares what they're doing and they just kind of promote their stuff. And it's so fun. But before we go to that, any last words from you guys? Thank you so much for being with us. It is a gift. I really, I enjoy your presence so much. And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for having us. It was really a
I know.
pleasure, and best to everybody listening. And I hope you, Kelly, helps you go get your dreams, go after it.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to do just that. Well, thank you guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
So good to have you.
Thank you, Kelly. That was really fun. I really enjoyed it. Nice to meet you, Jeff.
Great to meet you as well.
Okay, so we've got a small group. So this will be a short lightning round if you want to. Hey guys. Hey Mary, hey Gina, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, wasn't that great?
It was. I really appreciate both of you just creating this resource. And Kelly, it had been a while ago, but I responded to one of your EFT emails that went out, and they're always just like soothing, like hearing about your experience and just reminders of, and they're, what I really like about them is they're not long and they're not super dense, it's just something that just kind of helps clarify a struggle that all EFT therapists have, something to remember and be encouraged by. And so to expand that into offering this group and have these, like even just talking about the finances last time and then podcasts, I am just so grateful for the both of you making this available. It is just, I feel very, very blessed to have access to these resources, and thank you for making it available. It was great.
Well, that reminds me of, what Deb and Naomi were talking about, like being moved by like who you can help. So you saying that moves me and it makes me want to keep going, because that is really what it's kind of like I wanted to create something that I was looking for, back when I was feeling really kind of lost and stuck. I want to hear from you guys. Is there anything that, well, last time we talked, actually, Gina, you were moving. So I want to get an update from that with that, but I also just want to open it up to, is there anything that you'd like us to know about that you're doing, or the listeners to know about that you're doing?
Well, first, let me apologize for my dog. I'm guessing the mailman is here. So she's over here barking. It's so pretty outside. I had to be out here on the porch. Yeah, I'm expanding my Gallatin practice to be to kind of be my primary location, and then my Brentwood on Saturdays is kind of a secondary. And I've got like a little room that I rent right now, but I've got a little house that is being renovated right now. And so I'm in the process of kind of like looking for furniture and things like that. So that will be officially up and running come January. But I am open to all clients in Gallatin right now. I partner with Sumner County Recovery Court, and the people that go through the drug recovery program, I see them through a grant. And that's been a very challenging but incredibly rewarding experience. So, which is humorous in its own way, because like a lot of people, I was like, I don't really want to deal with trauma. I don't, but what's funny about that is that, being a counselor and saying, I don't want to deal with trauma is like saying you're a physician, I'm not really comfortable with the human body. So guess what? I work with trauma, and it's not quite as scary as I thought it would be. It's very challenging, but very rewarding. I'm learning a lot. I will be completing my full licensure in a couple months. So I'm scheduled to kind of apply for that at the end of January, which I'm excited about and also scared to kind of shift out of that, that kind of structure and support of supervision. But yeah, it's incorporating more IFS training into like EFT work, and just doing some basic somatic learning. I'm glad that you mentioned that Deb Dana was on their podcast, so that I'll listen to that one, because I'm reading polyvagal. I'll be speaking in December, I guess in about a month, at the Tennessee Association of Recovery Court Professionals Conference in Murfreesboro on polyvagal theory. So I'm reading about that. So I can talk about it. The best way to learn something is to teach it, right?
Yeah.
So
you've got so much going on. That's so exciting.
It does sound like a lot. It doesn't feel like a lot, but it does sound like a lot.
Well, I think it is a lot, and I think also in your stage of the game, everything is a little bit new. And so that can be, so, a little is a lot, but I think you're actually doing a lot. So it can be overwhelming because it's a lot of firsts, and that is, I think that takes, you can't, you just have to do it. You can't, there's no other way to get comfortable until you get through those first. So when you talk about trauma and being scared of it, I remember the first time I hadn't had an affair couple yet. And I was like, what if I get a couple that has had an affair? And I was like, I don't know if I can do it. That would be so scary, and then of course, you can't be a couples therapist and not see a couple that's been through infidelity. And so it happened, and it wasn't as scary as I thought. And then I've got this betrayal trauma video course now. So obviously I got pretty comfortable with it. But yeah, I'm excited for you. I want to give you an opportunity, Mary. Is there anything that you would like to share? Don't want to put you on the spot, but also would love to hear from you.
I want to reiterate what Gina said too at the beginning. I love this community. And when you sent out the email, I think I had paid for your intensive course on how to do intensives, and then found out about this through that. So thank you. That was amazing. And I'm trying to think about other ways to take risks, because I don't like doing that. So this challenges me every time we have this this time, because and you put it so beautifully, like taking small risks. They're not, they're measured, but at the same time, I'm pretty good at staying in my little lane. So yeah, I just want to thank you for it. I do. I really love it, and I've explored every element of your page and your website and the alliance. I'm like still going through the blog sections that you write. So I love it. It's very relatable, and for where I am in the EFT journey, I'm eating it up. So thank you. I just want to say thank you for that. It's really great, and I refer other people to it. I'm like, if you haven't, you really need to check it out. So thank you. Yeah.
Mary, I think I see you have a Nashville shirt on. Are you here? Are you local?
I am, yes. I'm in a group practice with Lindsay Castleman.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I think you told me that
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that it's helpful, and I'm so glad that you're here today. And I want to welcome Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Hi, how are you?
Sorry to pop in. I can only pop in for a few minutes, but I just wanted to see the goodness, be a part of it for a few minutes.
So glad you're here. So Sarah is an EFT supervisor in Alexandria, Virginia. And this is where I know exactly where she is, because this is where my parents met and fell in love and got married, and we go back there sometimes. But yeah, so we're actually in the middle of our lightning round. So is there anything that you would like to promote or share, either that you are doing or that your community is doing? We'd love to hear it.
Ooh, okay. On the spot.
I know.
So my colleague Angela Fowler Hurtado and I are offering a couple of drop-in supervision groups. If anybody in the it's a low pressure, no kind of commitment kind of group where people can come and do case consults, have a question if they're stuck in EFT in a certain place. We're testing this out to see if it's something that, is relevant and worthwhile to people, for people who might not want to join like a 10-session supervision group. So we've already done 2. We've got 2 more left for the rest of the year, 1 next week and then 1 in December. So that's, we're testing it out, looking for feedback, seeing if it's something that's relevant for EFT therapists or not.
I love it. How can people find out more?
It is on our website, the Washington Baltimore Center for EFT, wbceft.com.
Okay, WBCEFT.
EFT, yep. And you will also see on there, Kelly is doing a training for us coming up in March on betrayal trauma. So we're going to be advertising that more widely shortly.
And wildly too.
Wildly, absolutely. Sorry, it's Friday afternoon and I'm like, can't talk.
No, I get it. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm so excited about that. So I guess if I'm doing my lightning round, that would be one of them. And I'm trying to think, oh, Jeff, you can help me here. What am I doing that I need to tell people about? This join Superpower Alliance.
This
That's
is
obvious.
kind of the newest. Yep. And then of course your e-courses are always available.
I know what I can share. So, if we're talking about small risks, right? At the end of this month, Jeff and I are going to go away and I am going to write and he is going to hike. And I said, we need to be separate. This is a together but separate trip. So I'm going to be, I'm hoping to write a book. And so I've always wanted to write a book. I love to write. And now that I'm saying it, I have to do it, right? Now that I'm like letting you guys know, I have to do it. I have to actually finish it, but I want it to be kind of in the same vein as it's going to be a little bit like a business book, but also a personal book, sort of the trajectory of me as a professional going all the way back when I was little, and kind of how I would have to work harder. And then I switched to working smarter and what that can mean for other people. And so that's I don't know what the title is. I don't know how it's going to go. I just know that this is my next risk. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears. Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to switch gears, and I want to give you guys a chance to ask me anything. So this is basically like free business coaching. Okay, so, or if you want EFT, but and if I don't know the answer, I will find it because I'm pretty resourceful. So ask me anything that you want to know about business, the therapy, the business of therapy. And I'm just going to put it out there. What are your questions? And we can just have a conversation together.
So I have a question. Lindsay Castleman is also my supervisor. She's wonderful. And I asked her recently, just kind of how, in her process, how she kind of discovered kind of her sweet spot. Because I have felt that it's still being very new, a few years in, I still kind of have that intern mentality where it's like, I have to take everybody. And, speaking of burnout, when you're trying to be all things to all people, it still surprises me that, I can be very specific about who I work with and what I'm good at. And so much of it's time and experience. And a subtext of my question to her and to you as well, about your process is, there's a part of me that wants to know the shortcut, the easy way. And it's obvious that that doesn't exist, right? It is taking the risks. It is, as just like you were saying earlier, it is, you don't get the confidence and then do it. You gain the confidence as you try and fail and learn, right? But I'm curious, Kelly, about your process of learning. I am a great EFT therapist and I do really well with couples. And I also am skilled at building a business. What was it along the way that helped you learn that about yourself?
Yeah, I love that question because I think that's really relevant to a lot of people, especially who are just trying to get their feet under them, right? Like, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I enjoy? What is it that I'm gifted at? And obviously you can't just decide and then do it. You have to try out a lot of different things, I think, before you really land somewhere. And that's true for models of therapy. That's true for, even the context in which you work, which context do you thrive the most in? I didn't start out in private practice, definitely wasn't even thinking about group practice. So there's an absolute evolution. But I'll tell you the story of, I started out working with kids and families. I didn't work with couples at all. And the reason that I did is because I fell in love with attachment theory in grad school. And so this was really the only natural place to apply that at the time. When I was in grad school, there was no EFT course, there was maybe a mention in one of the classes. I lucked out though, and my supervisor is Kenny Sandifer. And so he was the first trainer in Nashville, really the first person doing EFT at all, like in a serious way. So that's actually how I learned about EFT. But when I was in supervision with him, I was bringing my cases about kids and families. I was working in a school system. I was doing school counseling, which I quickly learned was not what I wanted to do. But the short answer is follow your passions. Follow what you enjoy, what lights you up, because it just naturally evolves from there. And so first I loved it. I loved working with kids and families, but then I got to a point where the more that I learned about EFT, the more I felt like, there's actually a missing piece here. I felt like my hands were tied. I really needed the parental involvement. And I needed to get them in the room. I kind of understood that treating the child alone wasn't effective, that you really do need to look at the whole system. But because of how, if someone brings their kid to therapy, that's a big learning curve of, actually it's a big ask too. You're bringing your whole family, or you're bringing your relationship, you don't even realize how much the coupleship really impacts what's happening with your child. So I felt that rub, and I didn't have a good way to, there really wasn't a whole lot with EFT back then, emotionally focused family therapy. So Kenny convinced me to go to the externship, the first externship in Nashville. And at first I was like, why would I go to that? That's for couples. I don't see couples. And he said, well, you love attachment. Just go. And I was like, okay. And, that just rocked my world. That changed everything for me. And it made sense. So it wasn't after that, after the externship, I wasn't saying, I'm not going to do kids and families anymore. I'm only going to do couples, but it opened me up to try couples work. And then I really think it was more that I loved EFT than it was that I loved couples. Honestly, that was the thing that drew me first. I didn't love couples for a while. But there was nothing else that that was so clear and I could follow so easily. And I don't mean that it's easy to do it. I'm just saying, like, it makes sense. There's nothing else that was, and I was doing a lot of EMDR, play therapy. I mean, just all kinds of things. Cognitive behavioral therapy, all kinds of things. But this was the only thing that just continued to make sense. So I just put all I guess over time, that would kind of inform the continuing ed that I would do. And it just kind of organically became like, oh, I guess this is what I'm doing. I will say I do think that once you feel at home with whatever the model is or the context is, I think it's important to try to make it a niche in a way, but give yourself time before then. Don't try to pressure yourself to find that too early, because then you're just going to waste a lot of time and money in something that, so it's like, yeah, maybe get some exposure to a lot of different things. And then once something just really, it's like, how do you, like, finding the love of your life? How do you know? Well, you just know, but once something is like, you just keep coming back to it. It's the only other way I know how to explain it. You just keep coming back to it. Once you find that, then go ahead and commit. Because one of the things that has really helped me not to burn out is to not be doing a bunch of different things, that I'm just really doing one thing, and I'm continuing to learn to get better and better and better and better at this one thing. And that actually is easier than, well, with this, I can use this with this couple or this individual, or I think that some therapists can do that. I can't hold it all. So follow your passions, eventually commit to something, and give yourself some time. And it was a big deal for me to go from being known as someone that sees kids to now couples. I had to make that shift. So that was a risk, right? Because then it's a little bit like starting over. I mean, it was several years that I just saw kids and families. So but I did it because I wanted to actually love what I was doing. And so I did. And it really was not a big deal. It didn't take long for people to catch on. Referral sources. Does that help to answer that question?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Kelly, can I jump in?
Please.
This is something that I observed from a business perspective with you, was that you never just really cut any one thing off and chose something else. It was always kind of a gradual, okay, I'm going to see less individuals, hold out for more couples, and then that just over time would become pretty much all couples. And then, you know, so that's sort of a progression rather than a big shift decision sort of thing. Would you
No,
agree?
that's so helpful. I think you're right. And I think that's helpful for people to hear too, because that's much more realistic way of approaching it, right? It's like, if you start to get the inclination, I actually love working with individuals or working with couples or working with trauma or whatever, then just be really intentional about saying yes to that, and maybe, you know, no to some of the other without completely cutting it off. And then I think once you get to a more comfortable place with your caseload and the referrals are coming and you're feeling better financially, you know, then you can make a more hard and fast, like, as of this date, you know, I will only see blah, blah, blah. And I think that is also important, because you want to, you know, if you want to build something and you want it to be a very obvious niche, you have to actually make that happen, right? So I think it's easier to do it when you feel like you feel a little bit more secure in your business. You know, we all have to, that's normal. We all have to sort of like say yes to everything in the beginning because we're getting hours, you know, and we don't necessarily know exactly what we like yet. You know, you can't know until you actually do it. So yeah, I think about people on my team that are either interns or just starting out. We're trying to give them a lot of different types of presenting issues, and, you know, whether it's a couple or an individual or a family, just so that they can get experience and exposure, but also paying attention along the way, like what really lights you up. Yeah. What just excites you? What do you want to learn more about? Not what have you mastered, but what kind of brings you back. Other questions or thoughts on that?
I had a question for Jeff, if you don't mind. Did you notice a big shift in Kelly, like when she was not, like when she was home and not working, when she began to really gain momentum in EFT, work with couples versus working with children and families? As a spouse, I'm always curious about the experience
Yeah,
of someone
sure.
who is in therapy.
Well, it's funny because when she was talking about doing that for several years, I was like, was it several years really? And but yeah, I mean, because she was with an agency and that's mainly what she saw at the agency. And so I think the shift it wasn't that, it actually happened pretty quickly. I think once she went to the externship and started really getting into EFT. And so that, you know, is kind of where my mind goes as to the big shift was EFT became something that she went all in with. And as soon as she did that, then her yeses became couples and her no's, like no new this, you know, no new kids, no new individuals. We're going to go couples. Especially like she said, once she was at a financial place where she felt like she could make those calls and it would be okay from a risk standpoint. So yeah.
What about, I think what Gina's also asking is a shift in like energy or like enjoyment level, or like, did you notice, do you remember? I know it was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yes, because there was always a still trying to figure it out um, place that you were until you found EFT. And not only found it, but also just dove in, where you were like, I'm a purist, because I really believe in what's happening here. And then one more thing to add to that is that there was also a point where you stopped struggling with actually doing EFT. Perfecting the practice of EFT took another set of years after you dove in.
Longer,
It
way
took a
longer.
while. Right. But then there was a point at which, you just stopped talking about the struggle. And then from that point, it was like, she's got it. And it was really, really cool to watch that happen as well. So, I guess that's much further along in the journey that we're talking about. But
I'm laughing because I'm like, when can I tell my husband to quit having a bourbon ready for me when I get home from work?
Yep.
Yeah,
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that.
it's real. It's real. And I think that's, yeah, those two things go together, right? So just the normal trying to find your groove and what you love and what model is not the model and the niche, right? So even within a model, you've got a niche. Trying to find that is sort of like a process, but then getting to a place where you feel confident and you feel like I've got this, and you stop blaming yourself, right? So you have bad sessions, bad meaning difficult, not necessarily that you did anything wrong, but you just stop blaming. I think that's a huge marker. You just stop blaming yourself. It's like, yeah, either there's something that I don't know, or this is just a representation of where they are, in their relationship. And so of course, they dropped a bomb, 5 minutes before the session ended, and I couldn't do anything to repair it other than say, and here's your cycle right here, right? So I think that when you stop looking for what am I doing wrong, what's wrong with me, am I meant to do this, that's when like, yeah, I've got this. It's not an arrogant I got this, because of course you're always learning and growing, but I think it's telling what you're saying, Jeff, that like from your perspective, she's not talking about it anymore. She's not like obsessing over is this, am I doing a good enough job? Do I need to get better? Like that loophole. Anything else I love that question. But really opening it up, big, any kind of either business or kind of therapy question. And I think you guys are perfect to be asking them because of where you are in the process of being a therapist. And Jeff, you can ask too.
There was one thing I wanted to mention about the business savvy that you have, and kind of when you realize that you have this. I think you've always been you've been willing to do things, to take risks. But you didn't really see yourself as this business person, for a long, long time. And I think that what happened there is you just went forward, and then you started getting people who wanted to know how you did what you did. And so that's kind of how it became, oh, I guess I am good at this, and something else that I've thought of is that you sometimes have to make business decisions out of necessity. And so certainly in our story, there was a time where we had to ramp the business up for Kelly because I was transitioning careers. And so, there are times where it becomes, it's not really, what do I want to do? It's what do we have to do? And then you just take the jumps that you need to take in order to build up, your business to meet the need of the family. So that's part of it sometimes.
I mean, I think that gets overlooked, honestly. I think that a lot of success stories are accidental, so it's like when I ramped up my business, I wasn't thinking about success, or about like, I want to try something new, like Jeff is talking about. It was like, there was no choice, and so that, but I learned so much along the way, and it did give me a lot of confidence. And I think actually, Jeff, that is when I started to see myself as capable in this business way. That's when I started doing intensives. I wasn't doing intensives before that. And so I was like, okay, I need to think outside the box here. I need to make money fast, and how can I do that? I had to try to supplement your income. And what's crazy is that year, I think we made more than the year previous when we were both working. So I was freaking out. So it wasn't like a fun year, but it's just, yeah, I think it's, in a way, I'm grateful for that experience, because I'm not sure I would have really taken that many leaps that in such a big way, because I didn't see myself as this business person or this business or capable in this way. So I don't know if I would have done it, honestly. So I'm really grateful for that experience, because out of that, so maybe the lesson for you guys is, don't do it when you have to, do it before you have to, and see what you're capable of, and just watch it grow, and then that's the motivation that you need to keep going, right? Or to be something that, so I've added this group. A lot of people have asked for like one-on-one business coaching, and what's coming up in those sessions, I don't know if you can call them sessions, but those meetings, is that everybody, it has this desire for a spacious life, and it's really a spacious life with your family. And so part of taking risks financially and trying to grow something is ultimately about taking a leap toward that vision of that spacious life, right? And so I think that's something that we need to, obviously I don't know if you really arrive, but with each step along the way, hopefully you can say, this is closer to where I want to be, how I want to live, right? So, and it's kind of the opposite of hustling, if that makes sense, because I don't know, I can hustle, and I'm sure, but I don't like it. I don't like how it feels. So I've learned to say no to things and then say yes to things in light of, is that going to get us, the whole family, to where we actually want to be? So thanks for sharing that, Jeff. That was helpful. Any thoughts based on that, or how does that, I kind of could see that resonated with you, having a spacious life, not wanting to hustle, but also wanting to, part of having a spacious life is having financial security, right? So I think this is why, I talked with somebody yesterday and said, okay, if you want to go in this direction, you also have to raise your rate. You can't get there any other way. She has a waiting list, like, not hurting for referrals. What were you going to say, Gina? Oh, I thought you were gonna say something.
I mean, just that resonates, and that's something that I've been. I feel like I've been hustling since I started grad school. Life has been especially chaotic for me with family crisis in the midst of grad school and starting private practice and everything. And so this year, I just, along with my trial and error, became very intentional about just having a slower life and a simpler life. Because when I pay attention to my energy, when I pay attention to motivation and focus, it was just less was way more for me. And it does require saying no to a lot of things, and really kind of not assuming that things are important just because the culture around your even business or therapy or the culture at large says that they're important, but like checking in with your self energy, like what lights me up, and what drains me, and having that's where the I would say my primary risk has been this year, is just and really attuning to myself and giving myself permission to trust that. But that's, and so, even talking about business, I mean, I am my business, so it's important, but as far as wanting to scale and grow, that's not on my radar at all. I'm not saying it couldn't be, but right now that's just not at all what I'm interested in. I just want to deepen, myself. Being a business manager is very important. I'm grateful for these tools to kind of help shore that up. And then also, how can I deepen in knowing like where my sweet spot is, and really, and then within that, like you were saying, take those risks and gain confidence and traction, and like, and be in that place,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's what all that was about. But
Yeah. No, I love that. I think we're going for the same thing. We're just in a different place in the journey, and you're doing exactly what you should be doing where you are. I mean, you're trying to get you're trying to deepen, right? You're not, and I remember that visual actually was given to me when I did go this way instead of this way. But first you have to go this way. You have to go deep before you can go wide. Just really getting like sure of, this is who I am, in my business. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at. This is what I have to offer, right? Being able to communicate that in a very clear way. Like, it takes some time, to deepen it. And then that's very authentic, that's very like that gets sent, whether you're just in how you work, and then you get these referrals because people just know they've had experiences, and they send their friends. And who you are in your business. That's right. And then if you do come to a time where you want to add, scale, it's important that actually your energy level continues to be, the same or better, right? As far as like spaciousness and I love what you said about a simple life. Like, when people talk about that, I'm like, yes, where is the fountain that I can drink from? That is what I want. That's what we all want. That's what we try to come back to. Any last thoughts or questions before we wrap up? I really have enjoyed this conversation, and I know that people listening are gonna amen and yes, and this is like, it's what we're all thinking through as we make business decisions.
that's it for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of course. Mary?
Mary, it was good to see you again.
You too, Gina. I'm at the newer end of like this, thinking about business and how to, look to the future. So did you ever start with, people talk about 5-year plans or 3-year plans or 2-year plans, or was it more, okay, I'm going to just focus on EFT and deepening it, and then see where that leads, and then take a small risk? You know what I mean? Like, sometimes sometimes I get overwhelmed because
Yeah.
I think, okay, how long could this take? And I get a little like lost in it instead of just going, okay, slow down, calm down, take it back a few notches and stop getting a bit, I get a little lost in the forest, I think that's where I'm.
Yeah. So when you listen to my answer, don't listen to this as this is what you should do, because I think this is more just how I roll. And I'm not sure it's for everybody. I don't think I ever really have a plan, so to speak. I don't think it's ever that concrete. Definitely not 5-year, 10-year, I don't like, even with my group practice, what's your business model? I'm like, friendly? I don't know. What what do you mean business model? What's your mission statement? I'm like, we don't have a mission. What? So it's everything that I do is very organic. And I don't know how to do it any other way. But I think if you were to look back, there is a structure to it. There is definitely intentionality, and there's you could probably see it on a graph and see a pretty, there's decisions that I'm making that lead us to the next place. I do think one thing that I don't like to be stuck. And so if I ever feel stuck, I reach out. And so I reach out to mentors, to supervisors. So I think I don't let myself stay in one place in a stuck way for hardly any time at all. I just hate it. So I think that's probably important, is even if you feel overwhelmed, who knows if you feel overwhelmed for too long, right? Then I would think at least get some support, and that can give you then you're not in it alone, but it also gives you like kind of like a assessment point, like, where am I? Is this normal? And if not, what am I missing? And where do I need to go? Right? And I think that's really hard to do alone. So, it can be just somebody that's just a little bit further ahead of you, right? Just like an EFT buddy, or that's just kind of a couple of steps ahead of you. So I don't let myself get stuck. And so I think that ends up looking like a plan or movement, I would say. Jeff, I know you have a lot to say to this.
Honestly, the biggest thing is that I feel like when you're looking for how to do something, Kelly, because you know what your passion is, and because you're looking for, okay, what makes the most financial sense? That's kind of your business question. What makes the most financial sense? And where can I work smarter to make more money doing the thing that I love? And rather than it being, I'm reading a business book and they're telling me I need to do this and this and this and this and this to set up my small business and to do things right and have a vision statement and all that kind of, it's like, you know what your passion is, or you're finding it, right? And once you find it, you go towards that, you deepen that, like we've been talking about. And then what makes the most financial sense next? And it doesn't have to look like what everybody else's looks like, or what you would envision in your head is happening around you. One of the things we talk about is Red Therapy Group has very low overhead, very low, and so there's some decisions that Kelly made early on that just kind of ended up where we don't have a lot of overhead with the business. And so that a lot of other business owners would look at that and go, well, you need this, or you need this, or need this. And it's really just about where we are and what makes the most financial sense. So
Yeah, I think that I like that you put those two together, Jeff, the following your passion, and then that doesn't mean follow every single thing, right? Everything that you think might be fun or that you might like, or you even might be good at. I stopped doing hold me tights weekend retreats because it was so much work and very little financial payoff. It's not that I didn't make any money, I did, but I could do an intensive and not have any prep and make a lot more than doing a home. So that's one example of just, but other people like Lindsay, they do them and she loves them, and she has, built it to something that she's an event planner, she's amazing at it. And so that makes sense for her, right? It doesn't make sense. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. So that's from the business perspective. And then I think from just like, just learning and growing, whether it's in business or in the model therapy that you're doing, just don't let yourself stay stuck or overwhelmed for too long without reaching out. And then maybe take a tiny little leap to get yourself kind of to the next place. And then maybe that can kind of give you a bit of a more clear idea of, what is it actually going to look like? What should I actually expect? How long is it going to take, right? It can slow you down, and you can get a little bit of both, like keep moving, don't worry about how long. And, there's okay, I'm going to give myself 2 years and I'm not going to do this alone. And and then at the end of 2 years, I hate it. That's just an example, but.
Thank you. That was great.
You're welcome. All right, we're at the end of our time, and yeah, I loved it. Thank you for being with us. Don't forget, all you listeners, to go to Superpower Alliance and donate to the Ukrainian fund for EFT therapists. It's at the bottom, I think, of every page. Let's give back. This is a free group, so let's give back. Thank you guys. Next time. See you next time. Bye.